Mike's Daily Podcast.
I must say, between my home studio and this one,
Mike's Daily Podcast.
This studio rocks, and the one yesterday rocked too. But you know, I make do with the show when I do it in my basement at Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley. When I'm in Podcastro Valley, today I'm in Podcastro Valley 10. It's episode 1982. 1982. I could talk about 1982. It was kind of a watershed year for music.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
There was Asia with Heat of the Moment. I think the Police were about to come out with Spirit
Mike's
in the Radio.
Daily
No, wait, that's Rush.
Podcast.
Ghost in the Machine. Is that it?
Yeah.
Or was it the next year that they did Synchronicity? Oh, it was somewhere in that general ballpark. 1983. I had some coffee. I'm sorry, I had some coffee. Last show I was all about, you shouldn't drink coffee, blah, blah, blah. But I had some today. I think Saturday is my coffee day. Because all week I've discovered I can get around not having coffee. But Saturday, for some reason, I have to have coffee, and I'm not talking about that. 1983 was a watershed year in music. Men at Work, The Fix. Men at Work did Do You Come From Land Down Under? And Who Can It Be Now? And It's Just Overkill Day After Day, it appears. And then The Fix did Saved by Zero, and One Thing Leads to Another. And Rush came out with some good stuff in the early 80s. Let's hit the War, to Thames, Tom Sawyer, High on You. And then you had Pat Benatar. You had so much stuff that you hear when you hear the 80s came out in 82, 83. Go-Go's. Not the Bangles had an album, but they didn't really get popular till mid-80s. But I can go on and on about the 80s. I have done so in this podcast before. Welcome to Mike's Daily Podcast. We're at Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley 10, the last place on earth. This show covers a bunch of stuff that deals with your life, that deals with society, that deals with our culture.
And here's today's podcast picture.
That deals with a podcast picture today. I think I'm going with a Valentine's Day dinner picture. Or we will go with Blossoms. No, not the TV show from the 80s, or was that the 90s? How about a tree full of blossoms? I mean, all around me in Podcastro Valleyton today, the trees are blossoming. And this is in the parking lot of the mall in Pleasanton today. And you can see that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. Although I got this awesome picture of Basil. There he is, Basil. Just laying on this lawn. Kind of sprawled out. He's all about just staying still and relaxing and eating. He still loves to eat. So I have heard stories about people who say, or should I have the cat talking into the microphone? We have Drake talking into a microphone. That's pretty funny. Maybe we'll go with that at some point. Talking to the microphone, Drake. Meow. That's all possible. All these great pictures. Dang. Wow. I went from like hardly any good podcast pictures to a gazillion of them. Thanks to Joe and Bunny for their amazing cat pictures. They got these cats that are as old as Basil, 11 years old. And pets, when they get old, they're very wise. And they just don't put up with stuff anymore. Or they're just very educated, old pets. You should really respect old pets. That's why I don't understand, like, to some people, a dog that can't walk anymore, they just put him to sleep. But yet this dog is not in pain. He's got a lot of playful energy. That barking you just heard him do, he did that recently. He's just still full of playfulness, Basil the boxer, and still loves to eat and still loves to go places. And we're going to take him up to Shasta in about a week's time. So, or we could look at this full moon picture from last night. So many choices. By the time you hear this podcast, you'll know which one I picked. But you can see it at mikesdailypodcast.com. I have to make a decision. Decisions. And someone I know Rob Black, I produced his show for a long time. Actually, I produced his show on Friday, yesterday. He always says this one phrase: there are no decisions, they're just compromises. So we put all this pressure on ourselves to make a decision when in fact it's locked and loaded from the get-go. We're already pre-designed in a way to come up with the answer. The answer is just a compromise. You can either go, hey, I gotta pay this, or I'm not going to have this, or I'm gonna let it all go, not pay for it, and just let it go. Right now, I may or may not have an issue with a house in another state that has a septic tank issue, and I may or may not be able to rent out this house because of this issue. And what it all comes down to is I'm going to have to pay a lot of money, probably a whole year's salary's worth of money from, let's say, when I was younger and I just got into radio. Heck, it could be, if you just got into radio today, a whole year's salary. That's what I got to pay for a brand new septic tank. So I did a whole mess of research, and my lovely lady friend helped me about last year. And it's a decision that pretty much made itself. I mean, I have to, if I want to continue to rent out the house that I may or may not have in a different state, I have to have this septic tank completely redone and done to a level that is suitable, that it will carry it through the next decade or so. Decisions, my friend, that's what we have to come up with and make. And it faces us every day. Bob Seger had, why am I talking this loud? Bob Seger, who had some hits in the early 80s, in the mid 80s, early 80s, he had Against the Wind. In the 70s, of course, Night Moves, Hollywood Nights, Hollywood Hills, Above All the Lights. Very philosophical songwriter, if you did not know. He wrote We've Got Tonight, Who's Got Tomorrow, that later Sheena Easton. In the early 80s, she was a phenomenon in the early 80s. And then in the mid 80s, she kind of fizzled out by the late 80s. She and Kenny Rogers did the song, We've Got Tonight, Who's Got Tomorrow? That's not the words, but it's close enough. Uh-oh. Now Tracy Chapman's singing. Well, hold on. I might have to take care of something. Just a second.
Later that day.
All right, so let it never, ever be said that I did not know how to adapt to things because someone just walked in and said, I don't know how to use the other room. Whenever I use the other room, things happen and I can't do it right. And oh my gosh, who texted me now? Oh, my lovely lady friend. Shall we read what she said, because she's probably going to listen to this later? Okay, good. I'm glad you agree. Good morning, my love. And I will edit out parts that I have to. I'm glad you caught the bus. I was so sleepy this morning, I didn't even hear you leave. And then I woke up at just before 9 and jumped out of bed. Thank you for leaving the car, my love. I was able to get to her job on time by 10 a.m. My next appointment is 2 p.m., so I'm going to drive back and leave it at the Castro Valley BART station for me. Isn't that nice? See, that's how people work together and adapt. That way you can have the car in case you and Baz want to go for a walk. Yes, Basil. He doesn't really like to walk these days, but maybe we'll go to a nice park and he'll want to. I love you, my darling, and can't wait to see you later tonight. Oh, the rest of this I have to edit. See, folks, this is what Valentine's Day is all about, or Valentine's Day. Yes, I know someone who had a job in radio, who had a pretty well-known show in the Ventura County area, who was hailed by many, had many fans, and he could not say Valentine's Day. He had to always say Valentine's Day. And people would go, you're saying that wrong. He'd be, no, I'm not. I never do anything wrong. But back to the decisions we make. Yes, so I had to get kicked out of where I was earlier doing this show. And then we went on to later that day because I had to move everything Basically, all of my podcast got uploaded to a cloud, and then I downloaded it to another computer, and now I'm in this other place, and I'm outside a cafe anyway. Can you believe that? Mike can adapt. Mike can do anything. And that's how you have to be in this world. You have to adapt to things. You have to adapt to getting older. You have to adapt to things being different daily. When you want consistency, there's only so much of that you can do because there are decisions being thrown at you. There are life events and changes constantly. Am I getting you depressed? No, because life would be boring if it was the same thing day after day after day. You can get some consistency. It's amazing the amount of consistency we get. Realize that the consistency you get in life, it is merely a facade. It is not the real thing. It is not real life. Because all around you stuff is changing. All around you stuff is falling down and being rebuilt. And falling down and being rebuilt. And I'm getting this way on the show right now because my lovely lady friend, she wanted me to watch something that had to do with Aztecs and the shaman beliefs and the medicine man beliefs that came from the Aztec world. There is a movie out there that she purchased called The Sun and the Serpent or something to that effect. It is not the most highest quality documentary I've ever seen, and it is a little bit on the fringe in that it feels like college students made it and kind of made it willy-nilly. There's a lack of experience involved in making this. Let's just say it is not the most fine-tuned, slick production I have ever seen, but it told me a lot of stuff I didn't know. And that's the thing, you got to be open to, even though, like, okay, maybe this isn't the most well-produced thing I've ever seen. This doesn't look like the typical stuff I see on the History Channel or see on the HBO or whatever, and Netflix. But it is, by the way, Netflix is getting rid of the autoplay feature. If you get annoyed by trailers just starting to play as you're trying to watch the credits on a movie, perhaps you want to see who sings a particular song at the end of a movie, and suddenly they preempt it with the trailer for some stupid thing that they have, like a horror or whatever, some movie you're never going to watch. You can apparently turn that off now. They've made it more easy for you to do. That is first world problems to the T. So is the fact that Google Maps, if you're trying to switch it from driving to transit, you know, when you're using public transportation, as you know I do because I read that message that I received a little bit earlier from my lovely lady friend. Now that is apparently a little more difficult to do. So thank you for that. Some people make stuff easier. Some people make things tougher in this world where so much is done for us. I have got right now on my phone 3 assistants. I've got the Google lady that helps me. You go like, hey, Google, and suddenly your phone turns on. There's the Bixby function because it's a Samsung, and Samsung is rolling out the Bixby voice assistant person. And then I got Bing on my phone because I like the fact that Bing, whoever the Bing woman is called, Binga, she assists me because when you use Bing and you have it, you know, an actual account and everything, you get points. And then you can, like, I've gotten all kinds of stuff, Amazon rewards cards, Starbucks stuff. It's awesome. It's a freebie and I love it. Okay. So what we're talking about on today's show has jumped around considerably because I had to jump around considerably because someone else needed the room. And then all of a sudden my job, my full-time job, one of the stations went off the air and I was able to, with the miracle of technology, remote into the station and see what was going on. But thankfully someone at the station knew what they were doing. Someone who's brand new to radio, and she got it done. And that's how you got to get it done, is get it done. That's what, I probably sound a little different too than I did before the later that day thing, because I am in a different room. And okay, so back to what we were talking about decisions. and trying to make life better for ourselves, even though it does change from day to day. You shouldn't be filled with fear. One of the things in this movie that was fascinating, even though it was all about the Aztec religion and the beliefs that they had and how that's been carried down through some people over the years, is they had these little sayings that, like, Mark Twain said, Buddha, who else was there? Gandhi, and all these little things in there. Someone had the phrase, "There's no such thing as death. There's only change." Chief Seattle said that, and all these little helpful bits, and that's true. It is. I got a lot of it. Now, next show, hopefully, I can remember a little bit more that I learned from the Aztecs. But just the one thing, though, I don't quite understand about the Aztec religion, but apparently a lot of indigenous peoples' religions, believed in the power of tobacco. Yes. White people, European descendants, they saw tobacco and went, "Oh, we're going to bring this back." Sir Raleigh brings it back to England and everyone's smoking and go, "Oh, this is great." Never once remembering that there is a highly religious, highly spiritual thing going on with tobacco that everyone disregards. One of the people in this documentary said, "It's amazing how people use tobacco recreationally, but they're using it ignorantly because there's some kind of spiritual power with tobacco." Personally, I hate tobacco. My parents smoked like chimneys, and I hated it, and so I'm anti-tobacco. And I'm sorry, Aztec descendants, but I'm committing blasphemy by saying that. And yes, there is that thing that tobacco gives you cancer. In fact, they kind of addressed that in this documentary. The shaman said, yes, it gives you cancer, but that's when you're using it in the wrong way. No, tobacco gives you cancer no matter what. And believe it or not, if you're smoking pot, you are killing your lungs. But, they said a fascinating thing. There was some... what was he, a guru or a yogi or something? They had all kinds of different, they had an Orthodox priest in this documentary, so it wasn't just Aztec religions. A fascinating discussion about how this yogi said this, I forget, not Yogi Bear. Hey, picnic basket. No, not that type. But he said something very interesting about, think of it this way. You're when you breathe, okay, and I'm doing a lot of breathing because I'm talking, and that's involved with podcasts, isn't it? Breathing, breath in podcasting. But when you breathe, you're breathing in, hopefully with two lungs, unless you've done so much smoking you've killed a lung or collapsed a lung or whatever. We don't want that to happen. Your lungs are very important. Without them, you're dead. You breathe in, when you fill both of these lungs in with air, your heart sits right in the middle of them. And your heart gets hugged by the lungs. So when you breathe in, and he was talking about the word inspire, which means it's actually a derivative of saying in spirit, where your spirit comes inside of you, is entering into you. But when you're breathing in air, I lost the connection somewhere when he was saying this, but breaking it down for you, I'm just saying it's a fascinating concept that when you're breathing in and your lungs fill up, they're hugging your heart. So when you take a deep breath, when your loved one says something to you and you're just filled with emotion and you breathe in, take a deep breath, or when you hear some big piece of news like someone's died or something, you've just lost someone or something that meant a lot to you, you take a deep breath in and your eyes fill with tears. But when you breathe in, your heart's being hugged. Your very center, your very core is being hugged at the time when you need it the most. Can I get an amen? I went all pastor just then, didn't I? I went all parson, reverend person. Sorry. Anyway, I've learned that and many other things. I would like to go back to this. I am amazed when people buy DVDs, and my lovely lady friend bought this And at first I'm like looking at this, I've never heard of it. And I watched it and I learned a lot. So big thank you to her and a big thank you to you for listening. And a big, remember this, that Adam Levine last year had no shirt on during the Super Bowl. This year we have Jennifer Lopez on a pole. We have a lot of sexy dancing, and some pastor out somewhere in the middle of idiot land goes, "Yeah, that was pornography during the Super Bowl." And yet we had Adam Levine last year with no shirt. He was okay with that, though, interestingly enough. Hey, pastor, perhaps you should leave that church and leave your hateful hate towards women and the female form and the female body and dancing and art as a whole and move to San Francisco, because I think you like the men and there's some nice places you could visit that'd be happy to have you. So just saying, you should probably leave your world of hate and fill in your lungs full of love and hug your heart. Hey, look who's out here at Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth. I guess I should have someone here to tell you. Go to mikesdailypodcast.com. And by the way, all the Cafe Anyway characters you can see in cartoon form if you go to mikesdailypodcast.com and go into the gallery that's towards the bottom of the page. You can access it on your smartphone as well. But look who's here. Hi, Mike. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How you doing?
It's a Disgruntled Fiddle Player. Tell you what.
What?
I don't know what y'all were talking about those people that are like witch doctors and crazy, and they go and they smoke the hemp and they burn the sage and they smell like patchouli. I don't know what y'all were talking about, but all I know is that I don't get any of it, Mark Matthews. But I will smoke a cigar with you. If that's some kind of religious thing, I like that. Tell you what.
What?
That's all.
Well, there's another fascinating thing they said about how the roots go into the earth, and when the plants burn, the smoke goes up to heaven, and so heaven and earth are connected. I swear I was not on anything when I watched this. It was just, there was a lot of concepts that were entering my brain watching this thing about the Aztecs. Fascinating. Oh, look who else is out here as well.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer. Have some right now. I'll cut you. Oh, boy.
All right, thank you. Brewmaster, is there any tobacco in this root beer?
No, Mike.
Any roots in this root beer?
Yeah.
So I'll be rooted to the ground and my hands will keep reaching for the stars like Casey Kasem said?
Yeah, Mike Matthews. That's all right. Okay. Oh, boy.
All right. So lots to think of with Valentine's Day and your heart and love and people. And if you hate your ex, you can go to San Francisco like that pastor should. And if this is true, if you go to a Burger King in San Francisco and show them a picture of your ex, apparently you get a free Whopper. There you go. Oh, the other thing I learned is that this Aztec shaman guy, he would apologize to plants before he ate them, which is a fascinating concept because you got people like Paul McCartney who are total vegetarians and vegans, and Moby, same thing, because they don't want to kill animals. But the fact is that plants die too when you eat them. They are a living thing and you're eating them. And get this to build on your guilt, Paul. Love you, Paul, but get this, Paul and Moby, fellow bald, interesting guy. You are eating something that was alive. So they apologize to everything they eat because they say only living things can help me live. And by eating the living things, it helps me live. So like even nuts, they come from plants, and these plants are giving to you so that you can have life and you can live. And so you should be thankful to them for giving the life that gives you life, interestingly enough. And then there was all this stuff about killing chickens that I didn't want to go into right now because that's not cool. But okay. This podcast is over with. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley. If you are a chicken and you were offended by the last part of the show, you can give me a call, or any other type of person, and you want to give me a call, 336MM Daily. 3 + 3 = 6. MM as in Mike Matthews, Daily as in what this podcast is. Make the right decision today, or just make any decision, because life requires it of you. So I wish you good luck.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Hey, I forgot to mention that speaking of tomorrow, I'm going to be on 92.1 KKDV FM. You can listen at kkdv.com, which you can hear through the radio.com app, or go to their website, kkdv.com. I am on, as I am every Sunday, from 6 a.m. to noon, so tune in then. And that Bob Seger song, I think is called "You Got to Make a Choice." You make a choice. No, you always got to take a chance. You can take a chance when you walk out on the street. When you walk across the street, you take a chance on love, and he sings "Take a Chance on Me." Not the ABBA song, but he did a great song like that in the early 90s. You should check it out. Oh, maybe I will stop this and find out what it's called.
You take a chance on an airplane. You take a chance when you cross the street. You take a chance when you love somebody.
Am I right? That's what I mean. You gotta take a chance on things and make decisions. Okay. You can find out more about this show and tell all your friends about this website, because I pay for it. mikesdailypodcast.com.